My name is Karen Mitchell. I'm 61 years old, a widow, and I've lived in Austin, Texas for most of my adult life. I work as a school librarian, not glamorous but steady, peaceful. I raised 2 kids on my own after my husband died in a car accident when Melissa was 10 and Jacob was 7. I'm not a dramatic person. I cook dinner at 6, I clip grocery coupons, I fold my towels the same way every Sunday. But this story isn't about routines, it's about a single moment that cracked everything wide open. It started on a Monday morning, just like any other, sun pouring through the blinds, Pepper, my cat, curled up on the windowsill. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and saw an email from Melissa. No subject line, just her name. I smiled, expecting a photo of her wedding dress or a sweet update about the floral arrangements. I had already wired her $40,000 to help book the vineyard in Napa, the photographer, the jazz band. I was scheduled to send $35,000 more that week. I clicked the message. Mom. That was the first word, not hi mom or dear mom, just mom. Cold, final. Like a label. She explained that after reviewing the guest list with Andrew and his parents, they had decided I shouldn't come. It would be best, she said, if I watched the ceremony from home via Zoom. It'll feel like you're right there, she wrote. LOL. LOL. I stared at the screen. The coffee in my hand turned cold. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't even blink. Something inside me just shifted. Not with rage, not with heartbreak, just with clarity. I stood up, I poured out the coffee, I got dressed. And I drove to the bank. That was the day I stopped chasing a daughter who forgot what I gave up for her. That was the day I decided, no more begging to belong. That was the day I let it all go, and chose, for the first time, to live a life that was mine. I wanted peace. I wanted freedom. I wanted me. If you've ever given everything to someone who forgot your worth, stay with me. This story might be yours. Or someone's close to you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. When people talk about motherhood, they often speak in soft tones, rocking chairs, lullabies, birthday candles. They rarely mention the grit, the sweat, the exhaustion that lives in your bones. But that's the kind of mother I became. I was 34 when my husband died. One moment, we were standing in the driveway arguing about the electric bill, and the next, I was identifying his body at St. David's ER. A drunk driver ran a red light. David never saw it coming. Melissa was 10. Jacob had just turned 7. That night, I tucked them in without telling them what happened. I just held them close, whispered goodnight, and cried in the hallway when they couldn't hear me. The next morning, I had to tell them they'd never see their father again, and something inside me switched. I didn't get to fall apart. I had 2 kids who needed me to hold the world up, so I did. We had no savings. David had life insurance, but it barely covered funeral costs and 3 months of mortgage. I picked up 2 part-time jobs, daytime librarian at the high school, evening cashier at a 24-hour pharmacy. I stopped buying fresh produce and learned to stretch a pound of ground beef into 4 meals. I sold my engagement ring and used the money to repair our rusted-out Ford Taurus because I needed to get to work, not hold on to memories. Melissa loved ballet, but classes cost $75 a month. I told her we couldn't afford it. She didn't cry, but her silence hurt more than any tears. So I found a way. I cleaned houses on weekends for 3 months straight to make it happen. I remember scrubbing another woman's bathtub and thinking, is this what love looks like? Chlorine on your hands and nobody saying thank you. I gave up my birthday for 8 years straight. Didn't even buy myself a cupcake. Every dollar I saved went into their field trips, their shoes, their growing lists of needs. When other moms were getting manicures, I was calculating if we could afford flu shots this season. My hair grayed early, but I didn't have time to notice. Melissa changed majors twice in college. Each change meant more tuition, more credits, more books. She was smart, so smart, but never thought about the cost. She once called crying because she'd failed her statistics final. I stayed on the phone with her until 2 a.m., talking her off a ledge while folding laundry with one hand and preparing Jacob's lunch for the next day with the other. She never asked how I was. I never expected her to. When she moved to Seattle for a 6-month marketing internship, I gave her $1,500 from my emergency fund to help with the deposit and plane ticket. I skipped a dental appointment I'd waited 4 months for. My molar ached for weeks, but Melissa texted me a photo of her tiny apartment with a smile so wide, I told myself it was worth it. Every little thing, every ache, every dollar felt worth it at the time. Then there was Jacob. Sweet boy, always trying to fix things. When he met Clara, he wanted to buy a house. His credit wasn't great, but mine was solid. I co-signed the mortgage and handed him a $10,000 check. I told myself, that's what moms do. They show up, quietly, without conditions. We didn't have vacations. The closest thing we got to a getaway was when the power went out during a snowstorm and we all slept in the living room under 6 blankets, telling ghost stories and eating canned chili by flashlight. I kept telling myself, there will be time for me later. But later never came, and yet I never kept score, not really. I never sat down and tallied the dollars, the missed birthdays, the dentist appointments skipped, the friendships faded. Because in my heart I believed I was doing something holy, building a life where my children would never have to know the kind of struggle I did. But now I'm not so sure. You give and give and give. You become the backbone, the net, the safety cushion. You become the call in the middle of the night, the extra set of hands, the emergency contact. You mold yourself into the shape of whatever they need, and one day you look up and realize they stopped seeing you as a person. I remember one Thanksgiving, not long ago. Melissa promised to visit. I even bought her favorite pie, pecan with extra brown sugar. Set the table, lit the cinnamon candle she used to love. But 2 hours before dinner she texted, "Work emergency." Rain check? I ate alone that night, me and Pepper. I didn't cry. I just folded the napkins and put everything back. I told myself, she's busy, she'll make it up to me. But she didn't. And then came the wedding, the endless spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, venue hunting. She called me every week asking about photographers, flowers, the guest list. I was so involved, so trusted, until I wasn't. Until I became an afterthought, an expense, a placeholder on the budget line. They talk about death by 1,000 cuts. For mothers like me, it's not the big betrayals that hurt the most, it's the slow fading. The little ways they stop calling, stop asking, stop caring. So when I read her email, that cold, clinical dismissal wrapped in LOL, something inside me didn't just break, it woke up. It wasn't just the money, it was what the money represented. When Melissa called me, voice bubbling with excitement, saying she and Andrew found the perfect venue, a vineyard in Napa with twinkle lights and rolling hills, I didn't hesitate. She said the date was booking fast and they needed to secure it by the end of the week. I wired $20,000 the next morning, not because I had it lying around. I withdrew from a small retirement CD early, took a penalty hit, but I told myself, it's her dream. I've waited my whole life to see her walk down the aisle happy. That first payment was just the beginning. Over the next 3 months, the expenses stacked like bricks. Photographer deposit, $6,500. Flower vendor retainer, $4,000. Catering tasting weekend, $1,200. Custom invitations from a designer in Brooklyn, $1,800. Melissa would call or text, always polite, never demanding, but there was an unspoken expectation. I had always come through. Why would this be any different? And I did come through. I told myself this was my moment too. that maybe after all the nights folding clothes in silence, all the years watching her life through pictures on my phone, I'd get to be there, sitting front row, watching my little girl become a bride. I even started shopping for a dress. A navy blue chiffon gown with a modest neckline, something elegant. Something that said, Mother of the Bride, not too much but not invisible either. Melissa never asked what I was wearing, but I imagined she'd be happy I was making an effort. The calls kept coming. One day it was a concern about the lighting setup. Mom, can we stretch the budget for uplighting? It'll really make the photos pop. Another day it was, Andrew's parents think we should fly in the harpist from Aspen. He's famous, and it'd be such a nice touch. Andrew's parents. Their names came up more and more. They were hosting the rehearsal dinner. They wanted a say in the guest list. They had certain expectations. I played along. I thought I was being supportive. But the shift happened quietly. Melissa started running decisions by them instead of me. Changed florists because Andrew's mom didn't like the original one. Swapped the officiant because Andrew's uncle officiated his brother's wedding and did such a great job. I was still paying for the pieces, but the pieces were no longer mine. I became the invisible purse. I remember asking once, just once, if I could invite my friend Martha to the ceremony. She'd helped raise Melissa when I was juggling 2 jobs. Melissa hesitated. We're trying to keep it tight. Andrew's mom is really particular about the numbers. I felt my face flush. I'd written checks for centerpieces, travel coordination, and a $900 cake tasting that ended in them choosing a different baker entirely. But suddenly I had to ask permission to bring a friend. I laughed it off. Of course, no worries, I said. Whatever works best. But inside, something small and sharp started to twist. Then came the email. It landed in my inbox at 10:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was cataloging overdue books at the library. The subject line was blank. The body was surgical. Mom, after talking with Andrew and his parents, we've decided to keep the ceremony very small. The guest list is finalized, and we think it's best if you watch via Livestream. We'll send the Zoom link. It'll feel just like being there. LOL. LOL. 3 letters. Cold as steel. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there, staring at the screen, trying to match this sterile message with the girl who once begged me to stay beside her after a nightmare at age 9. Was this it? Had I become a sponsor instead of a mother? I scrolled up in our old texts. There were messages like, "Thanks, Mom, you're the best," and "Any chance you can help with one more thing?" But no connection. No check-in, no "How are you?", no "Can we talk?" I was a credit card with a heart, and now I wasn't even worth a seat. I walked outside the library, past rows of cars, into the dry Texas sun. My feet moved without thinking. I got in the car, turned the key, and drove. Not to her, to the bank. I didn't plan it. There was no grand declaration, no dramatic monologue in the mirror. It was instinct. The moment I stepped out of the library, the Texas sun hit my skin, and I knew. I wasn't going home. I wasn't going to call Melissa. I wasn't even going to cry. I was going to act. I turned right on Guadalupe Street and drove the 6 blocks to First Texas Federal, the bank I'd used for over 20 years. Same parking lot with the cracked sidewalk, same red brick exterior. I knew the tellers by name. Carlos, the branch manager, had once helped me refinance my mortgage after David died. He always greeted me with a warm smile and offered peppermints from the bowl at his desk. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat still for a moment. My hands were steady, too steady, like my body knew something big was about to happen and it was holding the weight for me. Inside, the air was cool and quiet. No music, just the soft clicking of keyboards and the low murmur of conversations. Carlos looked up from his desk and smiled. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, standing, "good to see you. What can I do for you today?" I walked over and sat down, placing my purse gently on the floor. I need to cancel a wire transfer, I said. He blinked, a bit surprised. Of course. May I ask which one? The $35,000 to Harvest Ridge Vineyards, I said evenly. He tapped at his keyboard, frowning slightly. Let me check. Okay, yes, it's scheduled to process later today, still pending. You're in luck. He looked up. May I ask why? I took a breath, but I didn't explain. Not really. I just said, the circumstances have changed. Carlos hesitated, reading between the lines. His voice softened. There may be a small cancellation fee, but this is a large amount. Are you sure, Mrs. Mitchell? I nodded. I'm sure. He slid a cancellation form across the desk. Initial here, sign there. I reached for the pen and signed without pause. It was the most confident stroke of ink I'd made in years. As he processed the request, I glanced around the branch, at the posters on the walls advertising retirement planning, home loans, student savings accounts. Funny, I thought. I had helped my daughter with all three, and now I was canceling the one payment that had tipped the scales. Not because of the money, but because of what the money no longer meant. Carlos printed the confirmation page and slid it toward me. You're all set. The transfer's been stopped. The funds will remain in your account. I nodded, folding the paper and placing it in my purse. He paused, watching me. You know, I have 2 daughters myself, he said gently. Sometimes we do so much for them, we forget what our own names sound like. I looked at him for a long moment. I think I'm starting to remember mine, I said. Outside, the heat had thickened. The clouds were rolling in, that strange Texas kind of sky, sun and storm all at once. I walked slowly to my car. Not because I was tired, but because I wanted to feel every step. Each one felt like a piece of myself clicking back into place. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. I knew what would be there. And when I finally did glance at the screen, I wasn't wrong. 6 missed calls. 2 from Melissa, 4 from Jacob. A new voicemail. Mom, what did you do? Call me back, I didn't… Instead, I drove home. I unlocked the door, fed Pepper, and opened the bottle of red wine I'd been saving since Thanksgiving. The one I didn't open because Melissa had canceled last minute. I poured a glass, sat on the porch, and watched the wind stir the leaves. It was quiet, not the lonely kind. The kind that makes you realize how much noise you've been living with, noise disguised as obligation, as guilt, as love. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. This time from Melissa. Mom, please answer. This is serious. The venue called. We're going to lose the date. Andrew's parents are furious. This isn't the time to be stubborn. Please just send it. We'll figure the rest out. You can still come. Just don't ruin this. I sipped my wine and stared out at the street. Don't ruin this. It was always me holding the pieces together. Quietly, willingly, until now. Now, they'd have to figure it out without me. By the time I finished my second glass of wine, the sun had started to dip behind the trees. That soft golden hour glow painted everything in the kind of light that made you almost believe nothing was broken. Almost. My phone was face down on the porch table, but it buzzed again. Short, sharp, insistent. I didn't move. I just sat there, fingers wrapped around the stem of the glass, eyes following the wind as it danced through the oak branches. Eventually, curiosity won. I flipped it over. 9 missed calls. Melissa. Jacob. 2 from a number I didn't recognize, probably the venue. Then the texts started flooding in like a dam had cracked. Mom, we need to talk. Right now. Why would you do this? I don't understand what's going on. Please answer. The venue says the deposit bounced. They're threatening to cancel. Andrew's parents are furious. They said this proves you're unstable. This isn't funny. And finally, if you care about me at all, send the money. please. I read them one by one, slowly. Each message a little louder than the last, a little more desperate, and strangely, I felt nothing. No rush of guilt, no pang of panic, just stillness. Like watching a thunderstorm roll in through a glass window, violent and loud, but you're dry, untouched, safe. My phone rang again. Melissa's name lit up the screen. I watched it flash, then fade, flash, then fade. I didn't pick up, not because I wanted to hurt her. I just didn't want to disappear for her anymore. I had done that for 30 years. I had swallowed my needs, diluted my voice, and smiled through the silences because I believe that's what a good mother does. You absorb, you accommodate, you stay soft, even when everything inside you is screaming. But not this time. This time, I let the silence speak for me. And apparently, silence was louder than I'd ever been. An hour passed, then another. I made dinner, grilled cheese, tomato soup from a can, something simple, comforting. I sat at the kitchen table, phone still lighting up beside me, untouched. When I finally opened my voicemail, it was overflowing. The first few were angry. "Mom, this is childish. You're punishing me over one decision? I can't believe you'd ruin the most important day of my life over this. Do you even care about me at all?" Then came the ones with cracks in the armor. "Please, just talk to me. We'll figure something out, okay? You can come." "I'm sorry, I didn't want drama with Andrew's parents. They think I made a mistake. I told them you were just hurt. I didn't think you'd actually do this. Mom, I don't know what to do." Each message told a different story. Denial, defensiveness, bargaining. Not one of them said the words I didn't even know I needed to hear. "I'm sorry. I see you. I was wrong." And so I listened to each voicemail like someone attending a wake, quietly, respectfully, but with distance, because something had died. Not my love for Melissa, but the illusion that it had ever been mutual in the same way. I had been the net, the foundation, the emergency exit. She had built her life on my sacrifices and never looked back. And now, when I finally stepped out of frame, the picture fell apart. And somehow, I felt free. There's a moment in grief they don't tell you about. A moment when you realize the tears aren't coming because what you're mourning isn't a person, but a role. A version of yourself you can no longer carry. That night, I didn't answer. I turned off my phone, not to punish her, but to protect myself. I took a hot bath, lit a candle I'd been saving for a special occasion, wore my softest robe. Let Pepper curl up in my lap as I read an old paperback I hadn't touched in years. And for the first time in decades, I didn't fall asleep worrying about anyone else's needs. I fell asleep in my own skin. It was nearly 9 p.m. When the doorbell rang, I was still in my robe, curled up on the couch, a cup of mint tea in my hand, and Pepper purring softly at my feet. For a split second, I thought about ignoring it. But something told me I knew who it was. I stood, set the cup down gently, and walked to the front door. Through the frosted glass, I saw a tall frame, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He was pacing, phone in one hand, frustration radiating through the air like heat. "Jacob." I opened the door slowly. "Hello to you too," I said before he could speak. "Mom," he started, stepping inside, not even waiting for me to move. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" "Melissa's freaking out. The venue's threatening to cancel everything. Andrew's parents are losing it. She said you're not coming to the wedding now. What the hell is going on?" I closed the door behind him with calm hands. He was already pacing the hallway. "She said you pulled the wire transfer?" "Is that true?" "Yes," I said simply. He froze. "What? Why?" I took a deep breath and walked past him into the kitchen. "Would you like some tea?" I asked. "No, Mom, I don't want tea. I want to know what's happening." I turned slowly to face him. I wasn't invited, Jacob. He scoffed. That's not true. She just meant, she sent me an email, I interrupted. No subject line. Called me mom like I was a formality. Told me they finalized the guest list and that it would be best if I watched on Zoom. She added LOL at the end like it was a joke. He looked away, rubbing his face. They were trying to keep things small. You know how Andrew's parents are, traditional, structured. I tilted my head. Is that what tradition looks like now? Disinviting your own mother but keeping the check? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For a moment, silence filled the room like steam. She's your daughter, he said finally. You're her mother. I've been her mother her whole life, I replied. Through every scraped knee, every sleepless night, every broken heart. I've been the constant, the backup, the bank. He looked pained. Mom. I stepped closer. My voice dropped, but not in anger, in finality. I gave her $40,000 already. I was going to send $35,000 more. That's 75 grand for a wedding I'm not even welcome at. Tell me, Jacob, what do you call that? He didn't answer. I saw the struggle in his eyes, that tug of war between loyalty to his sister and the weight of the truth he didn't want to acknowledge. She didn't mean to hurt you, he said finally, softer now. She thought you'd understand. Understand what? I asked. That I'm convenient until I'm not? That I'm valuable until I ask for something as small as a seat at the table? He sighed and sat down at the kitchen counter, elbows on his knees. They're counting on that money, Mom. They've built the whole thing around it. The food, the rentals, the vendors. Not my problem anymore, I said flatly. His head snapped up. Of course it's your problem. She's your daughter. And I'm her mother, I said again. But being a mother doesn't mean erasing yourself. He stood abruptly. You always make everything about you. I paused. And then very quietly I said, Get out of my house. He blinked. What? You heard me, I said, calm but firm. Get out. He stared at me, jaw clenched, fists at his sides. I have given everything I had to both of you, I continued. I've loved without keeping score. I've sacrificed so much I don't even know what my own dreams used to look like, and somehow I still ended up being the villain in a story I wrote with love. He didn't move. I looked him in the eye. I won't be that character anymore. He shook his head. You're overreacting. No, I said. I'm reacting. For the first time. He hesitated, then turned, walked to the door, and left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him. Not slammed, just a soft finality, but to me it was louder than thunder. And there I was, standing in the quiet kitchen, robe wrapped tight, heart beating steady, and I realized something I never expected. I didn't feel guilty, I felt free. The next day felt quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes with peace, but the kind that follows a storm. The kind that makes you wonder what's coming next. I woke up around 7, like I always do, made my bed, fed Pepper. Brewed my coffee with a little more cream than usual. The morning sun spilled across the kitchen counter, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to rush. No texts. No calls, no chaos, and somehow that silence felt louder than ever. Around noon, I got a call from a number I hadn't seen in years. Martha Kelly, my old college roommate. We hadn't spoken in over a decade, not since she moved to Vermont, but apparently she had relocated to Texas a few months ago to be closer to her daughter and grandkids. She'd heard from a mutual friend that I was still in Austin. I know it's last minute, she said, her voice warm and familiar. But I'm in town for a few days. Want to grab dinner tonight? And for once, I didn't hesitate. I said yes. We met at a small Italian place near downtown, one of those restaurants that didn't need a sign to prove how good it was. Just the scent of garlic, warm bread, and slow-cooked sauces hanging in the air. When I saw her walk in, my breath caught for a second. Martha hadn't changed much. A few more wrinkles around the eyes, a streak of silver in her thick brown hair, but the same calm presence. The same woman who used to sneak cookies into the library with me and stay up till 2 a.m. debating life and love. She hugged me tightly. "Karen," she whispered, "you look tired." I smiled. "I feel it." We ordered wine. Bread arrived. The candles flickered gently between us, casting soft shadows on the brick walls. "So," she said after a few sips, "tell me everything." And I did. I told her about the email, the live stream, the $75,000, the silence, the screaming, the slammed doors, the bank, the wine on the porch, the aching quiet in my chest that hadn't left since. She didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes or solutions. She just listened. When I finally stopped talking, she reached across the table and took my hand. "You were never supposed to disappear for them," she said gently, "but you did. And you did it so well, they forgot you were ever whole." The truth in that sentence hit me harder than any voicemail from Melissa. I swallowed, looked down at my napkin. I thought if I gave enough, if I kept showing up, that they'd see me. She tilted her head. "But you never made them look." We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that doesn't need filling. Then she asked, "When was the last time someone did something just for you?" I couldn't answer, so instead I asked, "When was the last time I did something just for me?" She smiled. "Then maybe that's where you start." We talked for hours, about old professors, first loves, bad jobs, broken plans. We laughed, really laughed, until the server gently reminded us they were closing. Outside, the night air was cool, sweet with early spring. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot. "Come visit," she said. "We'll drink too much wine and pretend we're 20 again." I promised I would. On the drive home, I rolled down the windows and let the breeze tangle my hair. The streetlights passed like slow-moving stars. I didn't check my phone, didn't play music, just drove in silence, letting every street I turned feel like a small decision I was finally making for myself. At home, I poured another glass of wine, not out of sadness but celebration. I was still hurt, still angry. But for the first time, I didn't feel alone inside my own skin. Sometimes it takes someone from your past to remind you of who you were, before you gave it all away. And that night I remembered her. Not the mother, not the widow, not the emergency contact, just Karen, and she was worth coming back to. The next morning, the silence shattered. It didn't creep in. It arrived like a flood. Like a storm that had been quietly brewing in the corner of my life and now came roaring at full speed. My phone lit up just after 6 a.m., not with a call, but an avalanche. 27 messages, 4 missed calls, 2 voicemails, all from Melissa. I didn't rush to check them. I moved through the morning like always, fed Pepper, made coffee, buttered a slice of toast. The sun hadn't fully risen, and the sky over Austin was a dull steel gray. But inside my kitchen, there was warmth, stillness. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up bracing for someone else's fire. When I finally unlocked my phone, the panic spilled out. "Mom, please, we need to talk." Urgently. The florist canceled. The final deposit didn't go through. Andrew's parents are livid. They said this proves everything. "Mom, the caterer just called. If they don't get paid today, they walk. It's a nightmare. I'm so stressed I can't breathe. I need you. Please just send the money. We can talk about everything else later." It went on. And on. Each text growing shorter, sharper, more desperate. But one thing was clear. This wasn't a daughter reaching for her mother. This was a woman watching her plans fall apart and trying to get the machine, me, to work again. I stared at the screen for a moment. Let the weight of her words settle, then evaporate. I hadn't heard from her for months before the wedding. No random check-ins. No weekend calls. She hadn't asked how my job was going, never asked if I'd been sleeping, if I felt lonely, if I was okay. And now the world was on fire, her world, and suddenly my presence mattered. Not me, just what I could fix. By 9 a.m., I'd received 4 more calls. 2 from Melissa, 1 from Jacob, 1 from an unknown number I assumed was a vendor. A text popped up from Jacob. Seriously? Just send the money, you're being dramatic. Everything's already booked, this is insane. I nearly laughed. Insane. No, insanity was giving until you disappeared. Insanity was being disrespected and still showing up with your checkbook. What I was doing now wasn't madness. It was clarity. At noon, the email arrived. Subject line in full caps. Please don't ruin my wedding. I opened it. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't jump. Just a calm readiness. Like I already knew what was coming. Mom, I know you're upset. I didn't mean for you to feel excluded with the Livestream decision. It wasn't personal. It was about numbers, about space, about Andrew's parents wanting a certain vibe. But now everything is spiraling. The Vineyard just gave us a final warning. If we don't make the full payment by 6 p.m. Paris time, they're canceling our booking. The florist dropped out. The jazz band won't hold the date without payment. Andrew's mom is furious. She says I've embarrassed their family. We told everyone you were paying. You said you'd send the money. Please don't do this. We'll talk about you attending. I'm willing to reconsider. But we need the funds first. There it was. They were willing to reconsider. Willing to possibly let me attend the wedding that I had poured nearly my entire savings into. All I had to do was pay first. It wasn't a gesture of forgiveness, it was a negotiation, a cold transaction, one that had terms and conditions. My love for access. My money for presence. I sat with it. Let it breathe. Let the insult wrap itself in polite language and sink into my skin. Then slowly, I highlighted the entire email and hit delete. At 2:47 p.m., my phone rang again. It was a French number. The venue. A calm, accented voice said, Bonjour, Madame Mitchell. We're reaching out regarding the final installment for the booking at Chateau Saint-Pierre. Your daughter informed us you would be completing payment today? I paused. The moment sat there between us, thin, clear, and solid. No, I said simply. There's been a change of plans. I won't be sending any additional payment. A pause. A breath on the other end. I understand. Thank you. And that was it. Click. Done. No explosions. No begging. No threats. Just the quiet undoing of something that should never have been tied so tightly to begin with. Later that afternoon, I turned off my phone. I sat on my porch, listened to the wind, watched the way it rustled through the trees, dancing like it had nowhere to be, and no one demanding anything from it. I felt that, not powerful, not victorious, just still. At 6:02 p.m., the time zone shifted in Paris. I imagined the panic inside Melissa's hotel room. The frantic pacing, the red eyes, the failed negotiations. The harsh whispers from Andrew's mother, the tone of blame that always finds its way to women when things fall apart. But I wasn't part of it anymore. That wasn't my storm, and for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for the damage they caused themselves. I'd spent years building safety nets. Now I was finally walking free of them. The sun had dipped low when the doorbell rang. I was just about to sit down with a new book and the last half glass of wine from the bottle I'd opened 2 nights ago. Pepper was stretched across the windowsill, tail flicking lazily in the golden light. Everything felt still, clean, quiet. I debated ignoring it. After all, I'd already heard everything I needed to hear. But something about the knock, it wasn't frantic, it wasn't demanding, it was hesitant. I opened the door, and there she was, Sophia. Melissa's best friend since 5th grade. She looked exactly like I remembered her. Freckles, kind eyes, the same unsure smile she wore the first time she came over to bake cookies in my kitchen over 15 years ago. Back then, she used to call me Mom Number 2. Spent whole weekends here, sleepovers, homework marathons, movie nights. She knew this house like her own. Now she looked like she didn't know where to stand. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said softly, hands clasped tight. "Hi," I blinked. "Sophia?" "That's unexpected," she nodded. "I know, I'm sorry for just showing up." "I wasn't sure you'd answer if I called." "You're right," I said simply. "Come in." She stepped inside, glancing around like the walls might remember her too. I led her to the kitchen and gestured to the table. "Tea or wine?" She gave a small smile. "Tea, if it's not too much trouble." It wasn't. I moved easily through the motions, boiling water, pulling down the old ceramic mugs. I used the chamomile blend I'd been saving for guests I wasn't expecting. When I sat across from her, she looked nervous, fidgety, like she was carrying the weight of a message she didn't want to deliver. "She sent you?" I asked. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "She's a mess, Mrs. Mitchell. They lost the venue, the florist's gone. Andrew's parents are threatening to cancel everything." "It's bad." I said nothing. "She doesn't know how to fix it," she added quietly. "She thought I'd fix it," I corrected. Sophia didn't argue. I sipped my tea. The silence stretched long, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was full, like the pause before a truth that's waited too long to be spoken. "She asked me to come," Sophia finally said. "Not to beg, not to pressure, just to ask, is there anything she can say that would change your mind?" I looked at her. Really looked. She still had that same softness, that belief that people could be reasoned with. That broken things were meant to be repaired, not replaced, but I was no longer the woman who believed the same. I set my cup down gently. "No," I said. Sophia blinked. "Not even if she apologizes?" I tilted my head. What would that apology mean now? Would she be sorry for what she did or sorry that it didn't go her way? Sophia looked down at her tea. "She's scared." "I'm sure she is," I said. "But fear doesn't equal change." I stood and walked slowly to the window. The sun was fading fast now, casting long shadows across the backyard. "When Melissa was 12, I said, she broke a vase my grandmother gave me. Lied about it for days. I wasn't upset about the vase. I was upset about the lie. When she finally confessed, she asked if I forgave her. I told her forgiveness is easy. Trust takes longer." I turned back. She didn't just exclude me. She reduced me to a line item, a utility, and only when the machine failed did I become human again. Sophia stood too, quietly. She stepped toward me, then paused. I think she misses you, but she doesn't know how to say it." "She'll learn," I said gently. "Or she won't. That's hers to carry now." Sophia nodded slowly. Her eyes glassed over a little, but she blinked the tears back. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Mitchell, for everything." "You didn't deserve that." "Thank you," I said, and I meant it. We stood for a moment. Two women from different generations bound by the same aching truth. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who break us cleanest. "Would you like to take some pie home?" I asked softly. "I made too much." She smiled, genuinely this time. "I'd love that." I packed it for her while she stood quietly by the door. Before leaving, she turned back and said, "Even if Melissa doesn't understand, I do. I get it." And I believed her. I watched her walk down the path into the twilight. She didn't try to argue, didn't offer more promises on Melissa's behalf. She just left space. and that space, that was enough for me. The wedding didn't happen, not the way they'd planned it anyway. It wasn't announced. There was no viral meltdown, no dramatic social media fallout. It simply unraveled, quietly, almost politely. The first email came from the travel coordinator. Due to unresolved balance and vendor withdrawals, we're unable to finalize guest transportation to Paris. Please confirm cancellation or alternate payment arrangement within 24 hours. I didn't reply. I wasn't even supposed to be on that email chain, but they had listed me as the primary contact for payment. Even in exclusion, I was central to the foundation. By the next morning, the venue was gone, the deposit lost, the date released. Andrew's parents, so image-conscious, so polished, had pulled their support. They were not going to fund a mess, as Melissa later phrased it in a voicemail that cracked somewhere in the middle. And then came the florist. Then the band. Then the guests who quietly started to adjust travel plans. The dream crumbled, one email, one withdrawal, one vendor at a time. Melissa stopped calling. So did Jacob. The silence that had once been mine, granted by their choices, was now theirs, but I didn't feel satisfied. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity. A week later, I heard from Jacob. Just one text. They're doing something in Andrew's backyard instead. Small, just family. You're not expected to come. I read it twice. The part that stung wasn't the exclusion, it was the finality. You're not expected to come. Like an afterthought, like a puzzle piece that never really fit, now conveniently left in the box. But oddly, it didn't ache the way I thought it would. Because something had shifted in me long before they knew they'd lost the vineyard. I had already let go. The morning of their new wedding, the sky in Austin was a pale blue. Soft clouds, cool breeze. I made French toast. Real maple syrup, brewed dark roast in the French press. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wonder what they were wearing, what music was playing, or how many folding chairs lined the patio. I didn't wear black or cry into a pillow. Instead, I opened the book Martha gave me at dinner and read 3 chapters without interruption. I even smiled when I remembered how Melissa used to fall asleep during story time, hand curled around her favorite blanket, eyes fluttering closed at the sound of my voice. And then I remembered the email, and the Livestream link, and the LOL, and I didn't smile anymore, but I didn't cry either. 3 days after the backyard ceremony, I got an email from Melissa, the subject line, "I don't know how to fix this." I hovered over it for a full minute before opening it. "Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say this. I messed up. I was trying to balance so many things, Andrew's parents, the guest list, my stress, and I pushed you aside. I didn't realize how much I was asking from you until everything started to fall apart. When you pulled the payment, I felt betrayed. But then I realized I had betrayed you first. I never made you feel like you were part of this. I treated you like a resource, not a person. And I'm so sorry. I know an email doesn't undo that. I know there's no guarantee you'll want to speak to me again. But if there's any way back, I want to try. I miss you. Love, Melissa." I read it once. Then I archived it, not out of anger, not out of pride, but because I was finally learning the difference between someone reaching for you and someone reaching to save themselves. That evening, I sat on the porch again. Pepper at my feet. A soft breeze twisting through the leaves, the last glow of daylight casting gold across the neighborhood roofs. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt unburdened because for years I had shown up even when I wasn't invited. I had loved without conditions and existed only in relation to what I could provide. But now I had space to think, to rest, to rebuild. I wasn't the villain in this story. I was the woman who finally stepped out of the shadows she had created trying to keep others warm. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. I didn't expect freedom to feel like silence, Not silence from the outside world. I'd known that kind of quiet for years. The one that followed canceled plans and unread texts. No, this was something different. This was the silence inside me, finally uncluttered, unpanicked, unoccupied by everyone else's needs. For the first time in decades, I wasn't bracing for the next ask, the next crisis, the next version of "Mom, can you?" The week after Melissa's backyard wedding passed in a haze of lightness. I didn't think about guest lists or floral arrangements. I didn't scroll through Instagram for photos of a ceremony I wasn't invited to. I didn't need to know what her dress looked like or what song played during the father-daughter dance that never involved a mother. Instead, I planted tulips, bright red and yellow ones, in the small garden bed by my porch. My hands dug into the soil, earthy and cold, and I realized how long it had been since I'd done something just because I wanted to. Not for show, not to serve. I signed up for a beginner's pottery class at the community center. It met every Wednesday night. I was terrible at it. Clay stuck to my elbows. My bowls collapsed into weird, wobbly pancakes. But I laughed, loudly, with strangers who didn't know me as a mother or a provider or an emergency contact, just Karen. One of the women in class, Angela, invited me to a book club. They met every second Friday, drank boxed wine, and argued about plot twists with the intensity of political pundits. I said yes. I reconnected with Martha, too. We met for lunch at a cafe that served overpriced salads and cinnamon lattes. We didn't talk about Melissa or Andrew. We talked about life, about the way our knees creaked in the morning, and how long it had taken us to learn how to be alone without feeling lonely. She looked at me mid-conversation and said, "You look taller." I blinked. I think I might be. I made small changes at home. I rearranged the living room, bought new curtains, burned the old candles I'd been saving for special occasions that never came. I got my teeth cleaned, went to a movie alone for the first time since David died. It was a cheesy rom-com, and I ate an entire tub of popcorn by myself. I cried during the ending, not because it was sad, but because I felt present, fully there. No guilt. No distraction. It was quiet in all the right ways. One morning, Jacob called. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. His voice was hesitant, slower than usual. "Hi, Mom." "Hi." A pause. I wanted to check on you, see how you're doing." I told him I was well. I didn't mention pottery or tulips or the wine-drunk book club. I just said, "I've been good." He paused again, then said, "I think I owe you an apology." And for the first time, I didn't jump in to soothe it away. I let him sit with it. "You hurt me," I said quietly. "When you told me I make everything about myself, that broke something." "I know," he replied. And I was wrong. I didn't forgive him on the spot. I didn't say, "It's okay." I simply said, "Thank you." And that was enough. There are wounds that don't scar visibly. They show up in the way you hesitate before answering the phone, in the way you hold your breath when someone says your name like a demand, in the way you instinctively reach for your wallet every time love walks in the door. But healing doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like tulips, like Wednesday night pottery, like making French toast just for yourself on a Tuesday morning. I thought motherhood meant never choosing myself. Now I know the truth. Good mothers don't disappear. Good mothers don't apologize for having boundaries. Good mothers are still women, with hearts that beat for more than service, with dreams that aren't dependent on being needed. I am still a mother, but I am no longer a martyr. I am Karen Mitchell, and I am just getting started. People often talk about love like it's a fire, burning, bold, bright, but for me, love was quieter. It was holding the line when no one noticed. It was showing up day after day, giving all I had, time, money, years, pieces of myself I never thought I'd lose. It was silent endurance, the kind that doesn't make headlines, the kind that leaves no applause. And that kind of love, it's dangerous when it's never returned. You don't realize it at first. You think you're strong, dependable, good. You wear your sacrifice like armor, thinking it protects you, thinking it means something. But what it really does, when it's one-sided, is erase you. That's what happened to me. I didn't see it clearly until I was left off a guest list I helped fund, until I was told, kindly, gently, to watch my daughter's wedding through a screen. As if love was a live stream. As if motherhood could be muted. That's when I realized I had become useful but not valued, expected but not included, needed but never truly seen. I used to believe that loving someone meant giving them everything, but now I believe this. If your presence is conditional, then your effort should be too. If someone only wants you when you're paying, that's not family, that's finance and love. Real love? It doesn't require you to bankrupt your soul. It doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't silence you the moment you speak up for yourself. Walking away wasn't easy. It wasn't cinematic or triumphant. It was quiet, heavy, necessary. I had to grieve the mother I thought I was. The story I had told myself that one day the love I gave would circle back, that it would show up in return tickets, invitations, arms wide open. But that day never came, and so I made a different choice. Not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but out of dignity, because you can't teach others how to value you until you stop showing up for free. Since then, I've learned something I wish someone had told me earlier. You are allowed to want peace. You are allowed to want more than being needed. You are allowed to choose yourself, not as a rebellion, but as a return to the person you were before everyone else's wants became more important than your own. To the version of you who once had dreams. To the woman who existed outside of mom. And if you've ever found yourself there, on the edge of silence, holding in the scream, trying to decide whether your worth is worth the cost, let me tell you something. You are not alone. This story might be yours, or maybe it belongs to your mother, your sister, your friend, someone who has given and just once needed to be held in return. So if it resonated, don't let it end here. Like this video, leave a comment, even just to say, I feel seen. Share it with someone who needs the courage to walk away from being invisible. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because the most powerful stories aren't always loud. Sometimes they whisper one word: enough.